What should we do with Alberto? Man, what a difference a year makes, Broncos country. I remember just over 12 months ago today, we were sitting here talking about Alberto Okwuegbunam as the potential starting tight end for the Denver Broncos. And now, here we sit just 1 year later, and Alberto Okwuegbunam is in danger of not even making this team. That is how big a drop off Alberto Okwuegbunam has seen over these past 12 months. It's really insane to think about. His blocking really leaves a lot to be desired. Previously, when you would watch Alberto Okwuegbunam attempt to block, you could see that the play strength just wasn't there. And I don't like questioning guys' effort on the football field because it takes a special kind of mentality to be able to play professional football at that level. I get that. But I will also say that there were just times where it felt like the effort wasn't there from Alberto Okwuegbunam in the blocking game. It felt like he just wanted to be a contributor as a pass catcher, and he didn't want to do the dirty work that's necessary of being a tight end. Well, to his credit, man, he's really worked to change that. Alberto, he stood out in the game against the San Francisco 49ers, our second preseason game. But he didn't stand out as a receiver, but he actually stood out as a blocker. I initially had Alberto Okwuegbunam in the duds category in my studs and duds video from that game. That was before I got the chance to see the All-22. Once I saw the All-22, I couldn't believe it, man. Alberto had two key blocks for two of Jaleel McLaughlin's big plays on Saturday night. One of them was a pancake block on that punt return that helped set Jaleel McLaughlin free. That was a massive block, and if you go and look at my film study from Jaleel McLaughlin's game, when I first saw Alberto made that block, I could not believe it. I was in shock because that did not look like the Alberto that we've seen for the past 3 years. Then on top of that, he had a block on Jaleel McLaughlin's rushing touchdown where he took the defensive lineman for a ride for like 7-8 yards. I couldn't believe it. It was like Alberto was a completely different player out there. Now I will say this though. It feels like, finally, the mental side of the game is clicking for Alberto Okwuegbunam, and it feels like he's putting in the necessary effort as a blocker. That said, I feel like it may be too little, too late here in Denver. He just seems like he's getting outshined by other tight ends on this roster, and even if we were to use him as just like a big slot receiver, that's basically the role we have Greg Dulcich in right now. So unless we want to keep Alberto Okwuegbunam as a backup to Greg Dulcich, and quite frankly, I just don't see that fitting here in Denver with the other depth that we have at tight end. We'll take a look at that in a second. I feel like the best move, both for the Denver Broncos and Alberto Okwuegbunam, is to potentially explore a trade. So if we come over here and look at the Denver Broncos depth chart at tight end, right now, Alberto Okwuegbunam is still listed as the 5th tight end on the roster, and he has yet to catch a pass in the preseason. Nate Atkins, the undrafted free agent, is listed ahead of him right now, and rightfully so. Atkins is a versatile player that can play both tight end and fullback. He's going to basically be the direct backup to Michael Burton, and he'll also make an impact on special teams, and he's going to see maybe some looks on offense as well. So with Nate Atkins, because of that impact that he brings on special teams, the Broncos may want to carry 4 tight ends, and our front 3 are firmly entrenched. Adam Troutman is tight end 1, our main run blocking tight end. We've got Greg Dulcich, who's going to see the most pass catching volume out of all of these guys, but he's more going to see that volume as a big slot receiver as opposed to a true tight end. Then we've got Chris Manhertz, who's another nasty run blocker. I feel like he's probably a better run blocker than Troutman is, but Troutman is the better receiver than Manhertz is. That's why he's tight end 1. And then we already talked about Atkins. So because of this, I don't know where that fits in for Alberto Okwuegbunam. And there is another scenario where the Denver Broncos could waive him and try to sneak him through those waivers at the cut deadline and then bring him back on the practice squad. But I feel like Alberto Okwuegbunam is simply too talented to get through waivers. Some team will try to find a way to use him if it's not the Denver Broncos. And because of this, the Broncos might as well just see if they can net a late round draft pick for him in some type of a trade. I would not be surprised at all if there was a team that's looking for basically a big slot receiver that might want to take a chance on Albert O. And hell, to his credit, his technique is improving as a blocking tight end. So you can maybe even use him as a true tight to the line, wide tight end. And that's not something that I would have said about Albert Okwuegbunam just a couple of weeks ago. He's really impressed me with how much he has really honed in on his blocking abilities. And although I feel like he may be just a little bit out-depthed here in Denver, if that's a word, it is now, he may be able to find a role for himself in some other offense in this league. And the Broncos may as well try to net some sort of compensation for Alberto rather than just waiving him and risking him getting claimed on waivers before we could bring him back onto the practice squad. So I'm curious, Broncos country, what would you do if you were George and Sean Payton in regards to Alberto? Would you try to trade him? Would you keep him on the team? Or would you try to sneak him through waivers in hopes of bringing him back on the practice squad? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell the old algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.